Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name is Ruben Murillo, President of the Nevada State Education Association. And we support this bill because, let's go back to the origination of this bill. It was to address factors that impact a teacher's evaluation. And from that bill, it changed. It's late. It changed into this bill that talks about classroom size reduction. And you can find statistics either way that would say it works or it doesn't work. I can only talk from a practical standpoint in terms of how it impacted me when I went from public school to Catholic high school, from classes that were large to classes that were small, 7 students in a math class. And as a special education teacher, I can also comment on what it was like teaching in an urban school with a lot of students and having to manage different levels of ability in terms of, is my class size going to get bigger or not? The thing I like about this bill, it's non-binding. That doesn't mean that if you pass this bill, classroom size reduction is going to be implemented the next year. It's non-binding. It provides parameters within which you can take a look at, because those parameters don't exist here except for 1st through 3rd grade. So if this is passed and it's non-binding, you have a parameter of which to say, these are the recommendations that a study has provided for us to take a look at classroom size reduction. Now, right now, there's an ability for school districts to apply for waivers that would increase, class sizes, and I'm going to guess that's not going to go away. So we have parameters in most everything that we do in life. Speed limit's 85 now in certain parts of Nevada. I'm going to guess, 80. I'll drive 85, I'm sorry. But there's always that leeway that people will go 5 miles above, maybe they'll go 5 miles low, and then legislation will be enacted to make sure that they don't go 85 or they don't go too slow. It's just a recommendation to provide us some information with which decisions can be made. And again, we go back to the origins of the bill. It's, what are those factors that impact the teacher's evaluations that are beyond our control, that we can't really manage? Classroom size reduction is one. What happens to children, outside of the school setting? So we support this bill because it does provide a framework within which you can take a look at. It's not mandatory. It's not saying that districts have to implement this. I'm going to guess that the districts will take a look at it, maybe use it as a guideline, but it does provide a framework, and it does provide a place to start this discussion. So, thank you.
Senator Hammond.
Okay, so I'm going to ask a question. Mr. Murillo, here's the question. So, again, thinking about giving more autonomy to schools and not necessarily saying this, from the state down, this is where everybody should be in ratios. Let's say a school is experimenting a little bit and says, we're going to put 40 kids in a class, but we're going to give them 2 aides that do have maybe not teaching degrees, but they have other types of credentials that help out. So now you've got 3 people in the class. They don't necessarily meet the guidelines because they've exceeded it. Let's say the guideline says that you can only have 25 kids in a 4th grade classroom. Now you have 40, but you have 3 adults in the classroom at all times. Does that not help out?
Of course it helps out. It would be even great if the district can find money to provide that many aides in classrooms, or schools can do that within their budgeting process. So yeah, they could. And again, if you go back to the waiver process and you go back to the autonomy that schools will have under the reorganization, that would be part of this whole conversation. Again, it's not the State Department of Ed saying, you should only have 16 students in a room. If there's a waiver that allows for additional help through aides or such, that probably could be considered, yes.
And I think I do appreciate your answer, but I think that the concern that keeps coming back is the concern that you heard from Senator Gustafson, who says one day you have language that says it's non-binding, and then the next time it's what, we kind of like these, it's now it's binding, and I feel like we're going in a different direction right now in that we're giving more autonomy. Now we're going to start taking it away when we haven't even allowed them more autonomy to kind of say what works for a particular. I mean, Clark County is a very large area, and I get it. I got lots of colleagues who tell me where they work and how hard it is, and I get that part. I'm just saying, why not allow some of that autonomy to make these distinctions in different areas of Las Vegas or Washoe or in the rural areas? You certainly don't want to prescribe one rule and then make sure that it's being obeyed almost everywhere in the state, because we all know one size doesn't fit all.
Sure. And Ruben Murillo for the record, but I guess I would assume that if this were adopted, it's going to be put in place and tie the hands of a lot of districts. When you say that this is laying the groundwork for maybe going from non-binding to binding, I guess that happens with all kinds of legislation that's passed. It can always be changed. In this case, what we're hoping is that there's a reference, that there's some standards that can be put down. And if a district chooses to, under the waiver process or under the school organizational teams, to decide that they want to go a different route, that I'm going to guess that the flexibility will be there. Again, it's non-binding. If it were binding, I would say, yes, I understand your concerns, absolutely. But it's just a way to provide standards, just like we have standards for teaching different courses in education.